Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Sunday New York Times Read Along. We are very excited to have you with us for another edition. We do this on Sundays at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and we talk about the news. We read a newspaper, we take your questions, and we want to hear from you. Tell us where you're watching from around the world. We have a very special topic today. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we wanted to bring you a guest who's been talking and exploring this topic for a long time now. Our executive producer, Neil Parekh. He is going to be talking about his own journey, including a diagnosis of adult ADHD just a few weeks ago. So we're going to hear him and we're going to hear from you. Talk about the topics that you're interested in. And of course, we're going to look at the news and what's happening in the world of news. Hello, everyone. I'm Sri Srinivasan and delighted to have you here with us. Please tell us where you're watching from. Please tell us how your Sunday is going. We want to hear from you. Today, we will be looking at the paper and then talking to Neil, who we'll bring on in just a moment. You all know him as our executive producer, as well as our occasional guest host. Please tell us where you're watching from. I see Jonathan's watching from the East Village. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here. We always appreciate you. Patricia is watching and says grace and greetings from New York. Doug Levy is watching from San Francisco, where it is 5:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Very, very early. Thank you, Doug, for always being here. And Sudha Parekh is here. That's Neil's mom. Good morning from Hastings on Hudson's. Today's topic and subject matter and the guest, very interesting. And Naomi Service is watching from Rhode Island, as you can see, with people from around the country, with people watching on multiple channels on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, also on the main channels of Scroll.in, one of India's most important independent news sites. Please share this content right now. Tag your friends. They can join us live or later as they have time. And if you're watching on a recording, thank you as well. Ken Fisher is watching from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We're at 7:30 in the morning for Ken as well. Good morning, Ken. Thank you for being here. Folks, we're going to just take a quick look at the newspaper to see what's in the news. And we have here, let's see, the lead story is the US economy girds for a shock in the trade war. I think it's already happening. Shipping slows down, specter of empty shelves in a recession as the tariffs land. This is something that none of us expected to see. And here we are. This is where we're headed. Big, big issue. Here are snapshots of Trump's top first 100 days. Executive orders. You can see the red line is Trump. FDR in 1941. He blew past that. FDR in 1937. Truman in 1945. And even Trump in 2017. You can see the difference. Here's another chart. Federal lawsuits against the president. And you can see here Trump, the two Trump presidencies, and the other presidencies, recent presidencies here. And the value of the dollar has plunged as well. You can see here when Trump came to power, the this was how the relative value of the US dollar fell, and now you can see how it's fallen. So it's very effective to see it in these charts. The S&P markets, how they've fallen. And here is federal funding for medical research has slowed, as you can see here as well. And then Trump went from being popular to unpopular. And he is the most unpopular president at this point in his presidency since the modern polling of presidents has started. The second worst, Donald Trump in 2017. And we look at charts like this and think about the chaos, but look at this headline. What chaos? Trump fans see a strong start. And that's obviously part of the problem where we are right now, where it is not clear how we get through to people who are just not seeing the world as it really is. This is an amazing story that I recommend everybody check out. After turning in Unabomber, brother yearned for his grace. And this is the story of David and Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski, the older brother by 7 years of David Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski, of course, was the Unabomber, and his younger brother turned him in. He said the he worked with the FBI to turn him in, and he spent his the remaining 25, 30 years apologizing and trying to uh, get back in touch and be connected to his brother. And then this last story here, the turbulent life of a man who was wrongly deported. A Kafkaesque twist stokes debate on US policy. And this is about Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, who, if you've been watching the US news, has been in it for a long time now, and not too far from where Neil lives either. So we'll come back to this in just a moment. A word about the New York Times read along. It's sponsored by our friends at Muckrack, and we're very grateful for them for all their support. Thank you. Please check out muckrack.com. And we also want to say thank you to Digimentors for putting this together and all the support the entire team gives the show. We are very grateful. We do event amplification, AI workshops, AI policy and strategy. We do events like this, and we would love to work with you. So let us know if you know of any opportunities to do so. So I think we are now ready to bring on our guest, Neil Parekh, who is our special guest today. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we want to talk about what Neil has learned about his own struggles with anxiety, depression, and more recently, adult ADHD. He's going to share his experiences with us, as well as the experiences of his running a very important show called Shining Light on Shadows. And we will get to all of that, and of course talk about the news and take your questions and comments. So let's, without further ado, bring on our very special guest, our executive producer on the air today. Please welcome Neil Parekh.
Hi, Sri.
Hey, Neil. How are you?
Boy, this is weird.
But it's wonderful. It's really great that you have become this great advocate for mental health. I think in our South Asian community, we don't talk about it enough, and I don't think men talk about it enough. So it's really important to have you here. One of the things that has happened to you in your life is that you were at the age of 51 diagnosed with adult ADHD, and that's a condition that most people associate with children. And so this after this came about, you've been writing about it, talking about it, advocating for more awareness. So tell us about that, and what that has been, what it has meant for you to first be diagnosed with it, and then how you have approached it.
Appreciate that. I will say that the first thing is that it means I don't want to go a moment without saying how much it means to me to be on the show today, talking about mental health. You know, having the support of you and Digimentors to not only produce this show, a Shining Light on Shadows, but also the show I did on male survivors of sexual assault. I did that in 2023. Means the world, but being able to share this with this larger audience, with our familiar audience, the New York Times read along family that we often talk about, and to be interviewed by you, I think is incredible, Sri. I mean, that's an important part of all of this, and I'm having to really shift my mind, and I'm not quite there yet. I was able to stay off camera for the first few minutes, which was good. But of course, in the background, I'm doing a lot of things I do usually in terms of sharing on Twitter and putting things in different groups. making sure the show keeps going. I was playing a little bit with the tickers as well. As far as this story is concerned, and kind of what my experience has been, I was diagnosed with adult ADHD actually several months ago, Sri, and it took me that long to just talk about it publicly. As much as I've been talking about mental health through the show, and a big shout out to my co-host Dawn Helmrich Newberg, who I wouldn't be able to do it without her, and she is actually watching from Milwaukee at an hour earlier, and it's early in the morning for her. But thank you, Dawn. I appreciate your support. I've been talking about mental health, but when I got the diagnosis about adult ADHD, it changed my world. It changed my whole thinking about it. It was a big deal for me to say last year that I suffer from anxiety and occasional depression, and that I even see a therapist. I was embarrassed to say those words. I never would have said that in any kind of professional context or with colleagues. I was afraid of what people would think of me. I'm still very afraid of what people think of me. And when I got the ADHD diagnosis, it turned everything on its head, because the thinking is that it's not anxiety and depression that I have, it's adult ADHD, and the result is anxiety and depression. And I didn't at first feel that, wow, I got this diagnosis, and it's great to have an explanation. It's great to have a understanding of what's going on. It wasn't that kind of an epiphany for me. It was more of a, oh, wow, adult ADHD. What the heck does that mean? How does that, like, I just had a hard time wrapping my head around it, and I couldn't even. I mean, I obviously talked with Pam about it right away, but I asked her not to tell our friends, not to tell anyone. It was a little bit before I even called my mom and my sister, just to share it with them. And so over the last several months, what I did is, after I did got the testing done, I went through some coaching with this company that did the testing. I liked what they offered, and it's this group, Calibrate ADHD. I'm going to put their slide on the screen real quick, Suri. They talk about the importance of kind of three tiers, three prongs: self-support, self-discovery, and tethering. Where the idea is to, really, they want to work themselves out of a job, is what the coach says. They want to give people the tools and the other information they need, so they can coach themselves through the process, and really understand how ADHD impacts their lives, what they need to do on a day-to-day basis to get through things, etc. So that's been very very helpful for me. I do want to share one analogy, Sri, that someone shared in a group session we had recently, and it's interesting. Is the idea of holding on to marbles. If you can think about it, that if everyone has to hold 100 marbles, but people with ADHD feel like they don't have a bag to hold them in, and the marbles are kind of all the things you're balancing in your life, and if people with ADHD are having trouble holding on, it's because they don't have a bag. That they're if you can imagine holding on to these marbles with your bare hands, and say maybe you're struggling to carry only 50 marbles, you see people around you easily managing 150, but you're holding on to as many as you can without a bag, and you're still trying. And the next part of that is medication helps. I am taking medication. I'm doing therapy and coaching and medication. but it only helps so much. It's the idea of a bag with a hole in it. And when you drop a ball, when you make a mistake, when you trip on one of the balls that you dropped, the problem is that the whole thing can come crashing down. It's a huge kind of thing, Sri, when I'll say that several months ago, if I and we've talked about this on a show, producing shows or even the read along, I used to kick myself and berate myself for the smallest mistake, right? If I put a ticker up at the wrong time, or if I switched to you instead of the guest or something, right? Um, and I think one of the things that I've been able to manage better um, is to not be so hard on myself. And it's something that I tried to actually model a better behavior for Emily. That perfectionism is a big part of ADHD, and this idea of I didn't want Emily to pick that up, and so I tried to talk about when I made mistakes, but I didn't always believe it. The last several weeks, I've made several mistakes. I've fixed them, and I've moved on, and that's been good.
Oh, there's a lot to unpack here, but the main thing is
Yeah.
that people are really proud of you for talking about it. And Stefan Kaplan says, "Good morning and wonderful to be here to support Neil. Sharing is important and insightful info and story." Chris Gorman's watching from New York. Diane's watching from Margate. And your colleague, Don, is watching from Milwaukee. And I love you, brother, he says. Miriam's watching from Hell's Kitchen. And Diane says, "Thank you for sharing your story." Sujana, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar, who we worked with a lot, she's been a guest on the show multiple times. She had an unexpectedly teary last week, and glad to take a breather and think. And you got this, Neil, says Naomi. And Paula says, "Thank you for your candor and courage," from Tallahassee. Debbie's watching from Arlington, and Patricia says, "Breaking the barriers. Thank you. The stigma has to stop." So that's really good. And your mom is proud for you to share your mental health issues publicly and with friends. As an Indian man, to talk openly requires a lot of guts and confidence. I'm proud of my son. That is so beautifully put, Auntie. Thank you very much. We know it means a lot to Neil and the whole family that you are so supportive. Not every Indian parent would be. Doug says having ADHD is hard because it requires treatment and discipline. However, I've come to appreciate having ADHD. I agree with others who say ADHD is a superpower that enables us to do big things that others cannot. And Debbie says ADHD is associated with creativity and having many engaging ideas.
Yeah, both of those are important comments, Sri. I want to go back to Doug's comment for just a moment. I did actually, and it almost feels like it was a dress rehearsal for this show on Shining Light on Shadows, the show I do with Dawn, as the bridge between April, which is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. I told my story for the first time about 10 days ago. And so actually it was John Lee, a former guest on our show, asked whether, ADHD is a superpower. And I think at the time, I said a lot of people think of it as a superpower, just as Doug is talking about. And I haven't quite wrapped my mind around that yet. I'm still trying to understand how it impacts me and how I can work with it. I think that if I were try to really think through the analogy, if anyone remembers, I think it's The Greatest American Hero, which was a show back in the 80s. And Sri, I think I see you nodding. So the greatest, you remember the show, Sri, where this guy, we lost our audio, but there we
I
go.
remember the show very well. It was about a superhero who was not always super and kind of sometimes bumbled and fumbled his way into things. But yeah.
He had so in the show, I forget exactly how the origin happened, but it's this regular person who developed these superpowers, but didn't know how to use them. So he
Mhm.
would fly, like unlike Superman, who flew straight and true. The guy on Greatest American Hero would be like all over the place, like trying to fly, and it didn't quite. He would have, he would at the end of the day be able to take care of whatever it was. I sometimes I feel like that, like I have the superhero superpower, but I just haven't been able to harness it yet. I haven't really figured out. I'm not always in control of it. Sometimes it's in control of me. But Doug, thank you for sharing what you did, and I do want to mention that a number of people, after I wrote my blog post last week for the show, a number of people reached out, and it was incredibly affirming. What I wrote was updating my diagnosis at 51. It's adult ADHD and RSD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria, not anxiety and depression. Uh, so, me in a nutshell for too long: self conscious, self doubt, turning feelings inward, people pleasing, perfectionism, rejection sensitive dysphoria played havoc with my emotions long before I knew its name. And when I shared that with folks, um, the number of messages I got, the number of comments, it was as affirming as when I first shared that I had been abused by a neighbor when I was 7 years old, and when I first shared that I had anxiety and depression. Um, I had my doubts, Sri, about putting it out there, and even in the middle of that week, I put out my blog post, I put out my I think Facebook and LinkedIn, and then Tuesday of that last week, I didn't do anything. I had one meeting in the morning, and then I didn't wasn't able to get work done because I was so overwhelmed with this idea of, should I send out the email about the show? What do I say in it? Should I put it out on Twitter and Instagram and really push it out to people? And I was paralyzed with that uh, concern about how people would react. And that's a lot of what rejection sensitive dysphoria is, in terms of being worried about what people will say. It's it can overwhelm, and a lot of these things, people might relate to them even if you don't have ADHD. What they say is that people with adult ADHD or ADHD even feel everything stronger and longer, and it's harder to shake. It's just more profound uh, in terms of these feelings.
Let's look at some of the comments coming in. Thanks, Neil, for helping to continue to the destigmatization of mental health issues in our society. Alex Counts saying that so much progress since the 1970s, but still a long way to go. And Don is a witness. He says, I've seen such a difference in you, Neil, over the past 6 months. And Dan Foreman, our colleague, says, so important for all of us that you are sharing, Neil. That is really well said. Thank you, Dan. Doug says, I love that Neil is starting the story of his journey towards diagnosis. Everyone can learn from Neil's journey. Rose is watching. Good morning. Proud to see Neil sharing his story and helping us raise our awareness of the importance of mental health. And we have Dr. Tachi watching from Fort Lauderdale. Hello. She has a great show that everyone should check out. And she was a guest on the show when we were in Miami in January. That was really a wonderful time to talk to her. And Ron Thomas is watching. Greetings, everyone. This is such an important topic today. Hello from Verona. He is usually in Dubai, but is in New Jersey. And we have lots of comments and questions coming in, folks. This is the Sunday New York Times Read Along. That's Neil Parekh, and I'm Sri Srinivasan. And we are talking to Neil about Mental Health Awareness Month and his own journey. He's a survivor of sexual assault that he has talked about. He is now been diagnosed with adult ADHD, and he's telling us his story and sharing lessons for everyone who has, whether they've been affected by this or not. One of the things that might be helpful for folks to understand is what is the difference between getting ADHD later in life versus as children, where people get Ritalin, and there's also all this commentary about how there's too much Ritalin, and young children are being over prescribed all this medication. So talk about that so people can understand, and then we should go back to those charts because there are a couple of
Sure.
things I want to ask you there as well. But go ahead.
And and I will say it's hard for me to take the you can make me a guest on the show, Sri. It's hard to take the producer out of me. I want to make sure we're live on Instagram as well, in terms of all our channels. As far as I'm going to put a slide on the screen. In terms of ADHD, and I can read out some of these symptoms. The National Alliance on Mental Illness talks about ADHD being signs of inattention, signs of hyperactivity, and signs of impulsivity.
Oh.
And one of the things to note is that I'm still trying to understand it myself, but my concern, and I think my bias, was that people associate ADHD with the 10-year-old, usually a boy, bouncing off the walls who can't control themselves. And for adults, a lot of adult ADHD actually presents as not just hyper activity or inability to focus, but it's actually hyper focus. So if you think of it as on a scale of 0 to 100, oftentimes you'll have people with adult ADHD function. If this is like a midpoint 50, they're functioning at like 90 or 95 or 100. Very productive, hyper focused, getting a lot done. But then when they're not, it flips all the way back to like 10 or 5. It's either like people talk about race car brain or just like either you're stopped or going. Like there's no in between. There's no regulation. Where most people, at least the theory is that most people live their life in this middle cone between 40 and 60. If they're at 60 level of production, and if they slow down, maybe they're at 40. But people with ADHD are more on the extremes, and of course it plays out differently for everybody. For some people, it's a question of figuring out what medication works and what dosage. I don't know. I can't say that what role the medication has played, because I've been in therapy for years, so I continue with that. I added the group coaching and the sessions with this firm Calibrate ADHD that I highly recommend in terms of if anyone's interested in their online test as a screener, or like their full test to see whether you have ADHD, but definitely their coaching as well. I can't tell you what's made the difference. Everything together has helped. And I do want to say, Sri, that in addition to the coaching and the and the medication, etc., going through the comments, seeing everyone watching today and showing up, it was hard not to have tears, because this is these are all the people that I have spent the last 7.5 years with every Sunday morning, and even folks who weren't able to watch, but the emails I got from folks. If it's okay, I'll throw out some names that really stand out. People like George Vesey, longtime sports columnist of the New York Times, who sent me the most incredible email after seeing my note. Tom Jolly, the print editor of the New York Times, who we have a professional relationship, and I still pinch myself that we know Tom Jolly, that we work with him, that he's been supportive of the show. But the fact that he took time to send me a very encouraging and supportive note, it's almost too much. I mean, I I don't want to discount support, and certainly from people who are watching, but it means a lot to have the support of my family, my mom and my sister, of course, and Pam. It means the support so much to have your support, Sri, and the folks I work most closely with at Digimentors, and others who have been supporting the mental health work that I've been doing. People like Paula and Stefan and Rose. Um, but it's the people who are unexpected when they comment and step up, and reading the comments on the screen earlier, I really had a hard time not losing it, because, and again, this may be true for everyone. It may be heightened for people with ADHD. You don't know how people are going to react. You don't know what people are going to think, and um, it they say that people with ADHD, when they're going through their mind, they try and predict the future. They try and predict how people will react, and unfortunately, we get it wrong almost all the time. And I'm glad that I've gotten it wrong.
And you can see how
Um,
much love, how much love there is for you. And Patricia says, amazing story and inspirational. If you didn't share, we would never suspect any mental suffrage. Thank you, Neil.
that's
And
that's because
Dr.
people are
Tachi
good at
said, yeah.
hiding it, Street. People with mental health issues will mask, to do everything they can for people not to see what they're dealing with. I mean, hopefully that's the thing, right? That for years, hopefully people saw me as a productive, effective,
Mhm.
professional. I didn't want them to see any of what I was dealing with, off camera or not in person.
Sure. Dr. Tachi says, thank you so much for sharing your story, Neil. And that's so important, that how you've opened doors for others, as your own mom says. And want to give you the chance to talk to your mom for a moment here in public.
Thanks. So yeah, this was it's a really important part of it. Whether you have whatever range of mental health issues, or in this case ADHD, um, having the support of people who are closest to you, who've known you, and obviously mom has known me for 51 years, 52 in just a couple of months. Um, it's really that kind of support day in, day out, um, means a lot. It's really hard to put into words, but as folks may know, mom watches every show, every read along Sunday morning. Even if I'm not the guest host, she still watches. She watches every Thursday show that we do, even when she's not feeling well. Like last week, she was sick. She was still watched. You know, and that means a lot to always have you there. So thank you, mom.
And we are so grateful that she's with us all the time and that she's with you all the time. Let's see, Jonathan saying that I looked at the list that you shared, and since I matched more than half of them, went for a comprehensive test, which resulted in a 75% score. I'm now going for a more serious, in-depth consultation. So that shows you the power of sharing and people getting to know. What have you found about the South Asian community? Have the work that you've been doing, has that helped open some doors for folks? And then men in general, obviously we're seeing men here respond really well, but talk about both of those if you can.
Yeah, one of the things that we've done with Shining Light on Shadows, is, we've had a range of different guests and different topics. We've been, I guess, both intentional and not intentional in a certain way. We've kept a very open mind about what kinds of topics we wanted to cover. We've had people who are experiencing their own uh, mental health challenges. We've had parents talk about their their kids. We've also had advocates. We've had therapists on the show. I want to give a special shout out just in terms of talking about the Indian community, the South Asian community. We had two folks that you know very well, part of the Sriniverse, Indira Samani, who has a background in journalism, was one of our earlier guests. She is working on a documentary about her mother, who has experienced severe depression over the last 20 years. And so the idea of having someone in our parents' generation, Sri, talking about their mental health is a huge thing. So that really helped. And so we were able to, one of the things that we were hoping to do with the show is not just raise awareness and talk about these issues, but also create a platform for people to share their experiences. Our good friend Pradnya Haldapur was also on the show recently, and she talked about how mental health plays out in the workplace, and how both as an employee, but also what types of things employers can do, supervisors can do to make it easier for folks. I have to say that we have had several men on the show as well. Brian Miller was one of our first guests. He's the New York Times restaurant critic who was first on the New York Times read along. Legendary New York Times critic. I had dinner with him in Hastings before I did the show this weekend. When we were in New York Street, if you remember, this was November of 2023 for an AI workshop that you did. That's when I really started kicking around this idea. And as part of that origin story, I will always go back to the conversation I had with Steve Taylor, who passed away almost 2 months ago now. Drove him home, and he had shared about his mental health challenges. And I said, "Hey, Steve, what if I did this show on mental health? What do you think? Would that work? Would people be interested?" And he couldn't have been more supportive and more encouraging. And he talked about helping to produce the show and possibly be a guest. Unfortunately, that we weren't able to make that work, and he had his own struggles. And as we know, we did a tribute to him on Shining Light on Shadows, and a full tribute here on this show as well back in March. We talked about that, but I also called Dawn that weekend. I asked if she'd be a guest on the show, and she said, "Sure. How about if I co-host it with you?" And that was certainly great. But I also talked to Brian Miller that weekend. I had dinner with him, and he was very supportive. We've had several men. Stephen Kaplan was a guest on the show, of course, talking about what he does to ground himself in nature to deal with kind of the anxiety that comes up in his life. But we haven't had any other South Asian men, Sri. That now that I think about it, so that's something we might have to work on and try and address.
Can you talk a little bit about this chart? I'll remove all the extra noise around it, but can you just talk a little bit about this so that people can understand it more?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll put in the website for this company, which, if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer for them. The way that they talk about it is that people with ADHD are not calibrated. They're in dysregulation. The coach in particular that I work with. And these are really the steps to try and get back into balance, get back into kind of a better relationship with yourself, frankly. so if self-support, around the side, it's operating with acceptance and curiosity, shifting out of guilt and shame cycles, developing and growing trust in yourself. Um, you know, Guilt and shame is something that a lot of people deal with, for example. And again, I think it's that people with ADHD deal with it in, it's more profound. I deal with this every week, Sri, for a number of reasons, but particularly for the New York Times read along. And Paula, longtime producer of the show, was had a front row seat to that often. I have this idea in my head of when I want to set up the live stream links for the show, when I want to send out the email for folks who get our emails. You'll know that it's not a predictable. You'll always get the email on Wednesday, or you'll always get the email on Thursday type of thing. And I am always kicking myself for not getting it out earlier, or I'm getting it out late, or I'm not doing enough to promote a show. And it's been hard to get around that and kind of realize that it's okay. Whatever I did is it's okay. And actually, the second guest on the show that I did with Candace Sanchez, Unspoken Conversations with Candace. This was a year-long show with male survivors of sexual assault. We talked about mental health in every episode, but I wasn't ready to talk about my own mental health yet. I talked about my own experience with being abused, but not mental health. And our second guest, we were watching the show because we pre-recorded it, and we were watching on a phone call together. And I apologize for not doing enough to promote that month's episode. I felt horrible. And he said, Neil, it's okay. Whatever you did is okay. And we're putting out good content. People will find the show if they need it. It'll be out there for people. And that helped kind of take a little bit of the burden off. But it's something that is hard. I still struggle with that on a regular basis.
I understand, and thank you. As Patricia says, as you're talking, it seems more common than uncommon, and you've been amazing. Alex asks, so when you share your condition with people in your life, what kind of responses are the most affirming and supportive to you?
That's a great question, Alex. Thank you. And of course, I want to recognize Alex as a former guest on the show as well. I will have to say that the responses that I've gotten that have been the most affirming, and this isn't, not everyone would be in this position, but a number of people have reached out to say that they too have been diagnosed with adult ADHD in the last few years of their life, wherever they are in their process, or that they too have ADHD and they've known for a while. What is, to me, what is kind of fascinating about this process is keeping it inside, keeping it hidden. Oftentimes people talk about, what you know about a person is like an iceberg. You only see so much at the top, and there's so much underneath. You don't know people's stories. You don't know people's experience. And once you open yourself up, now that I'm opening myself up like that, and someone else is comfortable sharing as well, we have a much more deeper connection, a much more profound connection. There's a quick anecdote on the show that we do on Shining Light on Shadows. We had a former colleague of mine from United Way that I worked very closely with, shared that his daughter had borderline personality disorder, and that she had tried to commit suicide twice before they got the help they needed. And he, started taking classes, and then started teaching the classes, became chairman of the board for this organization. I had an inkling that there was some kind of challenge at home, but we never really talked about it at work because I never opened up about it. And at a reception after that episode, another colleague of mine, that was a United Way reception, who worked on his team, told me, I saw the blog post, I saw the show, I'm going to go back and watch it. My son also has borderline personality disorder. It was so helpful to see Jim's blog post and comment. And I told her, and I said to myself, wow, these are two colleagues who sat next to each other, and they didn't know that they were dealing with the same issue at home, and they could have been a source of support for each other. And that's what I'm really moved by is when when we open ourselves up and we can offer that sense of support. A very close friend of mine from Washington State, who I text with regularly, still a former colleague, I shared what I was talking about, and she said, "Yep, I knew there was a reason I liked you. I knew that there was a reason we connected." She too was diagnosed with adult ADHD recently, and it just changes the dynamic. I would say, to get back to Alex's question, the other thing that is helpful, frankly, is just the very basic. It's okay. Thank you for sharing, and we've got you. We're there for you. A simple affirmation, a simple confirmation that sharing what feels like a deep dark secret didn't turn someone off, didn't have them change their opinion of me, or didn't have them think less of me, is just as powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Apollo's watching from Philadelphia. Patricia
Apollo's
says,
been great. Apollo's watched almost every episode, Sri.
That's wonderful. Patricia says, I'm thankful for you just being human, giving us all permission for inner peace. Ron remembers a quote, our inner voice can be our own worst coach, from Dr. Ethan Cross. And John, former guest on the show, who everyone should check out, the Irish Stew podcast. He says, thanks, Neil, for helping us understand these issues and putting a human face on them, which is really, really important. Folks, this is the Sunday New York Times Read Along. This is kind of the crossover edition with Shining Light on Shadows, a show that comes out twice a month. And Neil, tell us about our next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. The next episode of Shining Light on Shadows will be this Thursday, and it's a Mother's Day edition. Amanda Krantz will be our guest, and she will. The topic is a mother's love, an unbreakable bond through life or death. And her personal story: she has 4 older kids, and she had a 5th child that was born at 21 weeks and went straight into the NICU. And unfortunately, she didn't come home. And Amanda has worked through this just incredible grief, but has also talked about it and posted about it and shared about it. And she's going to share it with our audience. Anyone who understands a mother's love understands that it's not something that losing a child, it doesn't take away from that. And one of the things that I'm going to reflect on ahead of the show are the number of people that I know who've had miscarriages, who've had stillbirths, but also, shared for Pam's family, Sri. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but she had a brother who passed away from SIDS when she was 3 years old. And just seeing her family and kind of knowing that they not only, worked through that. A lot of families who lose a child, it impacts their marriage and they end up breaking up. Her parents not only stayed together, they had another child afterward, which is also very rare. But that loss, even if you take it further, I remember from Washington State, a colleague of mine, I was in a carpool with him, and he shared that one day, his 18-year-old son, they dropped him off at school one day, and he didn't come home. He developed some kind of meningitis uh, between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. And they got the call that he had died.
Mm.
And there was no illness, there was nothing that would have predicted that. Um, so
Well,
it's just,
yeah. No, thank you for sharing these. I'll just say, because SIDS is a word you don't hear as often as we did in the
yes.
90s. Southern Infant Death Syndrome is the leading cause, even today, of babies between 1 month and 1 year old. But it has fallen in part because the awareness that if you put your child on its back, the infant on its back to sleep rather than on its front, then it's less likely to happen. And that's so a lot of this is about awareness. And we have seen in various areas of medical and health care in the US that awareness helps. And the background to all of this, of course, is that that system that brought us really good medical care to the people who can afford it. And the public health infrastructure is now under direct attack in all kinds of ways, and that's something that we have to be very, very careful of. We're seeing an assault on the public health infrastructure of the US, unprecedented and shocking. And that's going to affect mental health as well as other kinds of health as well. So we want everyone to pay attention, be vigilant, and trust your personal doctor as much as you can, and follow the science is really, really important. Neil has put up his email address if you'd like to be added to the mailing list of either of the shows, or if you just want to talk to him, here is his email. And that show airs on the second and fourth Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, it's recorded and available easily, so you can see that. Such important topics being discussed. I appreciate the advocacy for mental health awareness. Junte has been a great, great friend. Let's see who else is watching. Mary C. Curtis, great guest on the show. I hope you realize how much love and support you have thanks to you. And really, it's sort of thanks to you because you have earned that. And that's something that everyone knows as well. And Dr. Tachi says this is extremely important. You never know what someone is dealing with when you look at someone's life, and you never know. Folks, this is the Sunday New York Times read along, and we are going to switch gears to talk about the news. One of the things that happens, Neil, as he knows, is when we have guests, we don't get to get into the paper enough. But this conversation is so important, and we'll keep taking your comments and questions, and Neil will jump in when he has a thought as well, and we'll come back with some thoughts towards the end of the show.
We'll share some statistics about ADHD as well later,
Sure.
before we close.
Yeah.
So yeah, and what's interesting for me, Sri, is being the guest, I don't have the paper in front of me.
Mhm.
I'm looking at it through the screen as any guest would, and I'm looking forward to it. One of the things I mentioned in the promos is that we'll also be talking about, among other things, Trump's first 100 days. That's
Mhm.
we'll get to the charts, I'm sure, but that's what all those charts are. And there's a lot of coverage about Trump's 100 days in
Yeah.
today's paper.
One thing I will say, if you're new to the Sunday New York Times read along, we read the Sunday New York Times, obviously, but it's not just the New York Times. When we can, and we have the appropriate guests and the appropriate geography, we've done papers out of Chicago, Washington, Toronto, we've Dubai. We've really done a wide range, and we're always looking for guest ideas and speakers. So if you'd like to be a guest, or you have a suggestion for a guest, write to Neil at digimentors.group. I'm sure he would love to talk to you about how we can schedule that. Let's take a look at some of these headlines. And you said the 100 days, and there are these snapshots that show how, in this case, the dollar has plunged As you can see, these red lines are the two Trump terms. The thicker red line is the second Trump term. The first red line is the first Trump term. And then you can see executive orders have skyrocketed, federal lawsuits against the president have skyrocketed, and Trump went from being popular to unpopular. And you can see his approval ratings are at the second lowest ever. The lowest was under the first Trump presidency. And NIH funding for competitive grants, all of them are at low, very low, historically low numbers. And the U.S. economy girds for a shock in the trade war. Shipping slows down. I was watching the executive director, Neil, of the Port of Los Angeles, talking about
Mm.
how because it takes so long for the ships to get here, 4 to 6 weeks from China, this is the week we're going to see a dramatic fall in the number of ships and containers. And without the containers, that's where you're going to have empty store shelves.
This
And
week. Okay.
yeah, starting this week, yeah, starting next week, you're going to see it, and it's going to be a problem. But a bigger issue is this headline here. So I think as the rest of us think, what chaos, what awful situation, here's the headline: What chaos? Trump fans see a strong start. So some of us say, oh my God, what terrible chaos. And others say, what chaos at all? It doesn't exist. Trump fans see a strong start. And that's where tens of millions of Americans are not getting the information. So they just don't know. And they just don't want to hear anything about it. And that's part of what we're going to see as we look through the news. And we're talking about mental health. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Sri, or is it that they don't care? That I mean, at some point, and I think I saw a cartoon where there was like an interview with someone with a MAGA hat on, like from a year from now, saying Joe Biden should have told us more about how bad Trump would have been for the economy. That's why I'm still pro MAGA because Biden didn't do enough or something like that. Like
Yeah, yeah. Or Kamala
they're not
Harris didn't do
seeing,
enough. That's yeah. I
they're
don't think
not
they're seeing, but
experiencing
it's
it
also,
yet.
yeah. Yeah, one of the big stories in the media this week was a profile of John Fetterman, the
Yes.
senator. And in that, it turns out that even though he's a Democrat, his father, who only watches Fox News, would loved seeing him on Fox News because he goes on Fox News sometimes and would send him an attaboy every time he was in there. And that his whole world is shaped by Fox News. And that there are a lot of people in the MAGA world who think Fox News isn't right wing enough, isn't supportive of the
Mm-hmm.
president enough. Its polls showing a dip in the president's popularity there are now calls for them to fire all their pollsters. So the world that we inhabit, where there's news, there's a variety of voices, you're hearing all of that, is not what most people are hearing. And that's something that is extremely worrying as we go
Are
forward.
we in an echo chamber, Sri? I
Oh,
mean, is
we
that
are. We Yeah. No, I think that there's no doubt that there is an echo chamber on for everyone because they want to listen to what they can. But are people open? Do they even have the opportunity to hear other things? Do they only see? Because if you watch Fox News and things right of Fox News, and there are such things, Newsmax, OANN, etc., there you don't even get a chance to hear anything else. Like if you watch CNN there or MSNBC or any of the network news channels, you will see criticism of Democrats. You will see uh, discussions of how the Democrats are their popularity is also down very very poorly, but you won't see that in those right-wing things. So that's the difference, I think, when you compare the two types of uh, the progressive folks versus folks who are not progressive.
and you watched Fox News, at least in the first
Mhm.
Trump administration, right? Didn't you?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. No, I used to watch it even in the 2000s. I used to watch it just to understand, and so therefore I knew because I was watching Fox News before Obama was elected. Once he was elected, it was clear that things were going to be really bad. And I think a lot of people were surprised by the rise of the Tea Party, for example. But that was all a direct hit on just having Americans elected a black president and the
Yeah,
anger that generated.
it's it's the
Let's
clapback.
keep yeah, and that's where we've seen. Here's a headline: The turbulent life of a man who was wrongly deported, and a Kafkaesque twist stokes debate on U.S. policy. And this is about Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, who has been in the news and lots of discussions about him and his future. And this story here is we were talking, this Mental Health Awareness Month, um, a story about the Unabomber and his brother, here seen as young boys. You see Ted Kaczynski, who's 7 years older than his younger brother, David, and David turned in the Unabomber.
Yeah,
For our younger audience uh, who are not familiar with the story, there is a Netflix uh, uh, show, and there are some documentaries and things that are worth watching. But he was somebody who held kind of universities and tech executives and others uh, under some kind of, it was there was so much worry about the bombings
yeah,
over a 25-year period. And his
yeah.
brother, so there's the first time his brother has talked about this extensively, discussing this with a New York Times reporter. It's really well put together, and I encourage everybody to take a look at that. Here to help: How to Birdwatch: A Traveler's Guide. These small ways that you can, they the kind of service journalism, as they call it, is here. In 2001, this is a headline from history: For first time, U.S. is excluded from UN Human Rights Panel in a move that reflected a growing frustration with America's attitude toward international organizations. The U.S. was ousted from the UN Human Rights Commission, the Times reported. And now you fast forward now to the UN, you can see that the US has pulled out of WHO at a time when we really, really need vigilance for the next health outbreak that we will surely have. Let's take a look at what's in the international section. Let's see here. Aloof Macron pulls up stool with regulators for quiet chat, an espresso at the bar of the out of the media glare. That's so interesting. And a book warns that AI can trick you. Here's a twist: AI helped write it. A publisher defends an experiment that proved its thesis. And here is let's see here. By the way, look at this. You're seeing an ad for Google's Workspace and Gemini, AI for every business. So AI is all around us. It's spent, let's see, it spent $58 million for a new cathedral and got just a hole. Ghana project has become a symbol of mismanagement. So
Yeah.
uh, here are, by the way, uh, lots of ads. I guess it's the auction season, so you're seeing a lot of ads for auctions. These contentious issues could decide who becomes the Pope. And that's a big story, obviously. Been seeing some cartoons, Neil, I don't know if you saw them online, of orange smoke coming out because they're saying that Trump is going to be
Well,
Pope. And posted, he was asked who should be Pope, and he said, I think I should be Pope. And then he posted a picture of himself dressed like the Pope, and everyone will say he's joking, all of that. But we've seen supporters of his saying, including a Fox Business host and New York Post writer, saying that most Catholics support and have more respect for Trump than they do for the Pope. Like these are things you would never expect to
but
hear or see shared by the White House account and other things. Yeah.
who does that? Like, and particularly as from the official account, like how do
Mhm.
you? I mean, how does it even? I could see someone else doing that. Maybe I could see someone, but like to first of all to even obviously use one of the AI tools to generate that picture.
Mhm.
Who's thinking that? And then putting it on the official account and assuming that that's okay. Like there's seriously something. I mean, there's not the first time that they've put out tweets that don't make sense, but I
Mhm.
mean, seriously. I mean, is the
Yeah.
next tweet of him as God, pointing from like the Sistine Chapel?
Well, he could. I would be surprised if that hasn't happened already. And there's certainly people who would believe that. They say he's an imperfect vessel for what God wants, and those are the religious folks who are supporting him. Prince Harry, says
Yeah,
he's eager to reconcile with his father, which is a really interesting story in itself. Let's see, some comments have been coming in. Uh, Dr. Tachi says, yeah, he says he's joking. If he could be Pope, he would. Some folks are intent on taking taking a Ferrari to hell. Laura says he's brilliant at getting attention. Here we are looking at a picture of him and talking
it's
about
true.
him.
It's true.
And here's Doug saying the official White House feed has become a pathetic, childish thread of false and embarrassing information. And Doug is an expert on public communication for official accounts, and so I can feel his pain as we're seeing this. By the way, Nirmal, who's been a guest on the show, says I believe truckers will be affected as well by the drop in shipments, and most are pro-Trump, so that's a
Yes.
segment to watch to see who is affected by the pain that's being inflicted. An interesting point about that is that they also have announced literacy tests in English for truck drivers to be able to
Yeah.
communicate. They said, but instead of saying literacy, they said literary test, as if that's the same word. And so there are a lot of jokes about, people are going to be quizzed on Dickens and other topics when they. So this is, and there are a lot of folks who may not be comfortable in English, including, by the way, a lot of South Asian truck drivers. There's a whole
There's a
community of truckers that are South
yeah.
Asian who some of them will be uncomfortable in speaking and doing interviews in English about trucking, as Trump has suddenly injected this into the into the air here, as we can
I,
see.
I, I
Uh,
want to make sure we give a shout out to Nirmal, a guest on the show earlier this year for his book Backlash: Donald Trump and the Remaking of America. So when he says they're a segment to watch, we definitely should pay attention. Uh,
yep, he really knows. Rocked by violence, Druze in Syria agree to disarm militias, and Zelensky rejects call for three-day truce around a Moscow parade, putting Putin's proposal as merely dismissing his proposal as merely a theatrical show. What are these very
what's
striking
that,
pictures? They
Sri?
fled. Yeah, yeah. This is. They fled a torn U.S. long ago. These are people who left the United States for various reasons: the pacifist, the father, the politician, the optimist, pursuit of an authentic life. We'll just read one. Let's see who the optimist who left America. Richard Lem saw Canada as a mythical land of beautiful vistas and a peaceful government. He applied for conscientious objector status in the US, which was meant for people who refused military service during the draft because it was incompatible with their moral or religious beliefs. Among other reasons, he was denied and fled north in 1968. The principal motivation for his leaving was political and moral, said Mr. Lem, a professor, writer, and poet in Charlestown, Prince Edward Island. As for today, he looks at the United States he sees as a deeply polarized society. People are not listening to each other enough and really need to. So this is little portraits of people
And
who have left the United States for
in
various
the
places, including Canada. Yeah.
top left corner where they introduce this this piece, do they put it in the context of how people are talking about leaving the United States now
Yeah,
in response to Trump? Is that
yeah,
explicit?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, they're and then they say, many of them uh were Vietnam War resistors, and then what has happened? And then 50 years after war, another retreat.
Yeah,
By the way, at the one of the things we've learned is that they're also going after refugees. The largest portion of the refugees in America are from Southeast Asia, and they came in the
Hmong.
70s and 80s,
Yeah.
and their status is being challenged now. So when we were told that this was all going to be about going after the worst of the worst, people who should not belong here, violent criminals, that is not what is happening, and that's an issue. Fentanyl may prove key in China trade deadlock, and Haitian alliance of gangs gets terrorist designation. And we barely talk about Haiti here, but Haiti is in a very serious mess right now. Let's
Did
look at
they?
the Sunday business. Oh, let's do what we
I just
normally
want to check
ask our
the
guests.
charts though.
Oh, yeah.
But so the three are the
Mhm.
charts in the main section in the ebook, or is it in a different? Do they say that like see
No, these
more?
charts are here. These are the six charts.
Those are
These are the
just the
six
charts. They
charts. So
don't
they're all
show.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah,
did share
yeah. These are the
earlier
charts on the
on.
front. Yeah. Hmm.
I did share earlier in the comments. Again, I can't help
Hmm.
but produce the show while we're doing it. Online, you can see the charts uh, that they pulled out, and it's always interesting because you can do more with the online version. But this is the full list of charts that they have on the dollar plunging, the markets, the State Department, etc. So it's
So it's
always
many
interesting
more
to look
than
at
what's
both.
on here. Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
more. It's more.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what section would you like to go to, Neil?
Um, let's go to the magazine because we
Okay.
often don't get to go to the magazine. We don't have time. Um, I'm hoping that we might be able to read the poem again after if they're still doing the poem.
Yeah.
But more
We'll
than
see
that,
if we can
when
find it.
I
Yeah, sure. Let
looked
us.
really quickly, there
Yeah.
apparently the magazine has several articles about happiness, um, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, dispatches from humanity's obsessive, impossible pursuit of the good life. Happy now is what it says here. So this is the kind of a happiness, not issue, but that's the cover story. So we will look at that, and here, and look at different sections here. And if we find the poem, we'll definitely read it. Isabel Allende knows you can grieve for a country, and talks about what happened in Chile. I read this interview. It was really powerful. Fear is a
Hmm.
very pervasive thing that changes a society and changes you inside, is what it says. And definitely we're seeing she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama in 2014, one of the most influential writers of our time. This is the ethicist. My natural hairdresser uses synthetic chemicals. Can I leave a bad review? Is the question here. And then another, let's see here. A woman I grew up with has a husband who has twice been inappropriate with me in public places. Once at a bar, he suddenly leaned over and stuck his tongue in my ear.
Oh
And
my
another
God.
time at a party I was throwing, he moved to kiss me out of the blue. Both incidents occurred in rooms full of other people, his wife included, but she was not viewing distance either time. I hardly ever see this couple, and I don't know the husband at all. There's no mutual friend of ours to run this by. What, if anything, should I do? You can see the range of kind of questions that come in. And here's one. I recently used a AI program to create a headshot for my social media accounts. The program asked me to upload several pictures. And this is one of the things that uh, we talk about with this stuff. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. People said to her, the stunning, crazy, gorgeous. The commentary went on for days. My husband thinks I'm being dishonest for not disclosing that my headshot was generated by AI. So what are your thoughts on that, Neil?
It's a fascinating topic, and it's actually something that Emily and I had a long conversation about yesterday in the car going to an event. she's actually she wrote an essay, did some research on AI for school recently. And it's interesting to say, she is very adamant that we should not be using AI to create content, art, and that type of thing. She's very strongly in the camp that, what AI can do is it can replace writers and artists, and it's going to force people into more menial jobs, things that AI just can't do. I feel, I feel that AI definitely has a role to play, and in this case, generative AI, whether it's artwork, whether it's helping looking at content or research. I think if you're working on something that's written or an artwork, disclosing the source, disclosing the role that AI played is important. But that we have to understand that it's a tool like any other, and it can certainly be abused, and it can certainly be. I would never condone running something through AI and then copy, paste, publish without any acknowledgement. It either has to go through a great deal of editing and massaging by human hands, um, or just be fully credited and say this was written by AI, or written and written by AI and reviewed by a human. Um, but there definitely
Makes
is a
sense.
role for it to play.
Sure. So we'll just very quickly go through the happiness stories here. Here, there's a formula for happiness, but you won't find it alone. That's interesting
I'd love to
and
know what
important
that
insight.
formula is.
Yeah, yeah. I think they want you to read it. Talking to strangers guarantees novelty. It holds the promise of unexpected insight, so you don't know where you're going to get it
Yeah.
from. And
Introverts can't do
tips from
that.
experts. Yeah, tips from experts on finding bliss. Savor life like an astronaut. So this is NASA astronaut Mike Massimino, and the author of Moonshot, used to complain about the weather. Then he went to space. In space, there is no weather, no atmosphere, no seasons, nothing. Now he takes time to savor what's around him. So savor life like an astronaut is one tip. Another is start a weird ritual. Small rituals can add levity and meaning to daily life, says Michael Norton. Okay, that's something you can do. This is in keeping with our topic for today. Set up an emotional first aid kit. Think
Mm.
about things that reliably soothe you so you can pull them on during rough spots, says Susan Albers. These might include, say, assembling a serotonin playlist to give yourself a lift, or collecting positive emails and screenshots of supportive texts from loved ones that you put in a folder. And you got a lot of those
We
today, Neil. So
we talk about that in our group coaching, the importance of having that folder, having that we do that internally, Sri. We have our own
Mhm,
yeah, for
mhm.
Digimentors greatest hits that we collect feedback we get from clients and guests. That's an important mechanism to remind yourself when you are questioning, when you're having doubts. Go back to that folder, remind yourself that you do actually you are doing some good work.
Excellent. Hang out with younger people is the advice here. And then do a mini version of your favorite vacation activity. So I guess if you love lying in a pool, build one in your in the back of your pickup truck, and then you can do that. So say daily naps, reading novels, family dinners, then try to find a mini version of that. If you loved biking on vacation, start with a weekly bike ride. If you loved exploring, meet a friend in a new town and wander like a tourist. So you don't
It's all
need
great,
to be on vacation to have vacation.
great
My very
ideas.
depressing week in the happiest country on earth. So this is, I guess, a visit to Denmark. No,
Nepal, Bhutan,
Finland. I don't know. Finland.
Finland.
I didn't know Finland. I thought it was Denmark or Bhutan. But above
Yeah,
in the winter, a resident of Helsinki said, "We don't have colors." So you can see here, Helsinki is. And Nirmal is saying, "Listen to uplifting music is the way to go." So this is all about life in Finland. And in Finland, sauna is not a means to an end. I guess sauna is what they do all the
I,
time.
so
Too
I
many
put
teens
Nirmal's
are
comment.
struggling.
Sorry, I put
Mhm.
Nirmal's comment on. And then I saw his earlier comment, Sri, on Facebook on AI generated images, where he finds it astonishing that people put them on and don't disclose them as real. I see that in multiple Facebook pages on wildlife, on art, and so many, when challenged, say, "Oh, but that's what's your problem? It's a beautiful image." I wanted to call that out because that was actually the specific point that Emily was making yesterday, where she has searched for pictures of a lion in the jungle, and and the results were clearly AI. And she was frustrated that she couldn't get a real image of a lion in a jungle. And even more so, she did, and we talked it through. She included in her search term, lion in a jungle, not AI, but her results, what she was saying is that the search results, Google, etc., was pulling up. They only saw the term AI and still served that up. So she was really, and I was, we were going back and forth, and I was thinking, well, but that might be a problem with Google in terms of it not being able to filter out. Like, we have to have better filters and better control over the information we get. What Nirmal's talking about, when it comes through a Facebook feed, people are posting that. You can't really,
Yeah, they're choosing to do that.
right?
Yeah. Too many teens are struggling, but what brings them delight? And so here are some things that some teenagers are doing. Twinning with my friends, says Hazel, 13. Watching jellyfish videos, Marin, 18. Going fishing by myself, says Ren, 14. And falling asleep on the phone with my best friend, says Destiny. More ideas here: listening to gospel music, drawing maps and blueprints, talking out loud to a rubber duck. These are all
Mm.
the ideas. Waking up in the middle of the night to watch Australian soccer is Genevieve's idea. And then our idea of happiness has become shallow. Let's go deep. We just need to move beyond that small, sealed off model of happiness. So they're talking happiness isn't an optimization problem, as a lot of people think. By the way, we always ask our guests, do you do any of these games?
You,
Um,
I will say that I used to do the crossword years ago, and then last year we had Deb Amlin as our guest at the end of the year, who works on the crossword team, on the games team, and for about 3 months, I'd say, after that show, I got back into all the games. I was doing Wordle consistently, and the crossword, the mini crossword every day, the regular crossword Mondays and Tuesdays. I can't really get past Wednesday. I was looking at the other games as well, but I will say that I had my streak for Wordle, at like I don't know, 50 days or something, and then I forgot to do the game, so I lost my streak, and then I did it again for 50
sure.
days. But once I broke that streak, I stopped playing again, and that's actually, Sri, I'm going to tie this back to ADHD. It's this all or nothing approach.
Mhm.
That's a framework that people with ADHD have. They're either going to do it all in or not at all. It's like if you have a carton of eggs, if one egg is broken or you break one egg by mistake, you throw out the whole thing, which doesn't necessarily make sense, but that's kind of how people think sometimes. What's Christopher saying?
Christopher
Anyway,
saying
dance
that there's
enthusiast.
a, for dance enthusiasts watching today, there's a nice review of Urban Stomp Dreams and Defiance on the dance floor in today's art section. The show is on view at the Museum of City of New York, where he works. Email me
Yeah,
if you'd like a tour. Wow, that what a great offer, folks.
we,
So everyone, please reach out and connect with Chris Gorman. There's his email address. You can see it there.
it
We
was
will not
it
have
was
time, unfortunately, but here's the Arts and Leisure.
it was
Yeah,
before
go ahead,
Chris
Neil.
moved there, because he worked with you at the Met, right?
Yes, yes.
But we did a great show with Stefan Kaplan at the Museum of the City of New
Mm,
York in person
yep,
in the before times,
yep. Just in
which
the
was
before
great.
times, I think just before the
Yeah,
world ended,
December, December that
we
year, I think.
were yeah, here it is. This is the and that's a beautiful museum. at the start of the Museum Mile that everybody should, if you're in New York, you should check out. A show chronicles social dance and opens up the dance floor. So check out that show. We'll just quickly look at the other headlines. The business cover is the Post Trust News Media. Residents of Oakdale, California have abandoned traditionally outlets for a mishmash of online sources. Life in the town has changed as a result in Oakdale, California. Colleges know how much you're willing to pay. Consultants owned by private equity firms find students and calculate aid. So if you're thinking that you have some control, you may not. And this is that. Here's a story. Speaking of the Met, this is the Met Gala: Defiance, Elegance, and Flair, and that's probably tomorrow. The Met Gala, which is the
They're
first Monday in May.
they're focusing on Black dandyism, which I think is very
Mhm.
interesting in terms of a theme. Um,
And the exhibition, this year's Fashion Institute exhibition, is super fine, tailoring Black style. And restaurateur dishes on himself in a new memoir. The provocative Keith McNally reviews his life's trajectory. No ordinary cabinet, no ordinary time. 22 people charged with dismantling the government from the inside. And that's the Sunday Opinion cover. So wait, that was not Opinion. What was that? That was, oh, the
what's
part two.
that?
There are two Sunday Opinions, part one and part two. Repress
Oh
dissent,
wow!
shatter precedents, dismantle oversight, bully the opposition, crush elite institutions, seize executive power. How to sabotage democracy. This is looking at the 100 days, of course. I'll just show you one more thing. Long live the new spelling, the power of words in the book review. Gabe Henry's Enough is Enough, ENUF, about efforts to standardize English orthography, and John McWhorter's Pronoun Trouble, about the little words caught up in our culture wars, find that spelling and usage have never conformed to the rules. And you know how hard it is for non-English speakers to understand English and think of everyday words if you're new to it. So this is some effort as at new spelling, new spelling, long live. So
Yeah.
you can tell live between live and live, right? If you put an E in there, things like that. But this is hilarious.
What's interesting,
The
I saw a graphic recently that had a whole paragraph. I think this was again in ADHD, where it was all misspelled. The words were all
Mhm,
wrong, but our mind can read it. I mean, if you know
mhm,
English, you could still
yep.
read it because your mind fills in the gaps and knows what to expect. It's an interesting concept. I want to make sure folks know that we won't be having a show next week because of Mother's Day. Um, it's May 11th, so we're going to take the time with our respective mothers. Our mothers, sorry, our wives who are mothers. I won't be in New York. Sri, of course, I'm sorry, your mother is no longer with us. So sorry about phrasing it that way.
No, no,
Um,
it's fine. It's also my daughter's graduation, so we're
that's
we're gonna be
right.
busy. We're gonna be
That's
busy
right.
with that. So yeah.
So that's
Mhm.
the No Mother's Day. But after that, we'll be back on May 18th. Stephen Bradley will be our guest, and I didn't update the graphic on that. I'll have to fix that. He is not a guest and mental health advocate. He is a professor of Black Studies at Amherst College and the chair of Black Studies there. He wrote a book, If We Don't Get It, A People's History of Ferguson. So I'm looking forward to hosting that conversation with him May 18th.
And that
Um,
Sunday is the graduation of my son. The twins are
yes,
graduating in separate colleges, so we're very excited
you
and
dodged a
very
bullet
grateful.
that they're not on the
Not
same
having the same
weekend.
same week. Yeah, yeah, of course. When they were in the same school growing up, we'd be for parent teacher meetings. We'd be running back and forth. Folks, it's 10 o'clock, which means we're at the end of our show. But I want to give Neil a moment or two to kind of wrap up his thoughts on where we are, and as we look at and we're at the beginning of Mental Health Awareness Month, so I want to
Yeah,
hand this over to Neil.
thanks, Sri. Appreciate it. And again, I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to share my story around mental health and adult ADHD on this platform and with with our New York Times read along family, people who I am very close to, even though I haven't met a lot of folks in person, but um, it's part of this effort of reducing the stigma around mental health, around sharing personal stories, and establishing more authentic and deeper connections with people. Um, and I appreciate all of the support. Um, it is still a struggle every day. It was a struggle yesterday. It was a struggle in the middle of the night last night, getting work done. Um, but the more I talk about it and the more I wrap my mind around it, it helps me as well. Even if it helps others, I'm grateful for that. And if people are hear something or reach out, Jonathan said that he got tested, for example. That's even better. I do want to share quickly just a few stats from the CDC. 15.5 million American adults, 6% have been diagnosed with ADHD. About half of them received their diagnosis at age 18 or older. 25% of adults suspect they have undiagnosed ADHD, which I was floored by. I couldn't believe that when I read uh, that stat. Um, a majority, 71% of adults taking medication reported difficulty getting their prescriptions due to lack of availability. And one third of adults are not receiving any type of ADHD treatment. I also looked at stats for India because we are partnered with scroll.in to bring you the New York Times read along. They're one of India's most important independent websites. We're so grateful for that partnership. In India, there's several studies. They show a range from 5%, 5.48 to 25.7%. Just think about what that means for the numbers of people who must have adult ADHD in India. That's staggering if you think of a population that's north of a billion people. Almost if they're at the top end of that range, it's almost I think the U.S. is around 300 million now, but 250 million people could have adult ADHD in India. Um, the bottom line is understanding that people have so much going on in their lives, so much of a background that we just don't know about, that we don't know where they're coming from, what they're dealing with in their homes, in their families, in their personal lives. When you see someone put together, oftentimes it's because they're working damn hard to show a professional front, to look like they're being kept together. So when they do slip, when they do drop a marble, as we were talking about earlier in terms of the analogy, as much grace as you can give people is definitely appreciated. And again, this has not been easy for me to talk about mental health, to talk about ADHD. I'm only able to do it because of the support that I'm getting from you, Sri, from the Digimentors family, from my own family, from everyone watching. And I've said it several times, but I cannot tell you how much it means to me to have that support. It is incredible and affirming, and I thank you deeply.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's a pleasure to see how you have taken this, what would have been a setback for anyone else, and been really able to use this to power yourself and power through very difficult situations. Nirmal says, great chat as always. Thank you. And mental health is so important and so misunderstood and underreported. Debbie points out it's Mental Health Awareness, Asian American Awareness, Jewish Heritage Awareness Month,
Yes.
all in May. And there may be other things as well. Ron says, thanks so much. Always a master class. And so folks are really grateful here. So thank you so much. And everybody, we will not have a show next week for Mother's Day, but we will be back in 2 weeks for a very important conversation about African American America and what is happening, so that we can all can understand better what's going on. So thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you. Neil, thank you very much for another important show. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.